So today I have with me an author who wrote The Fragile Heart. She also is a blogger. She lives in Nigeria, um, and she's only 23 years old, which means we can look for a lot of work from this author. Her name is Elma David. Elma, how you doing today?
I'm fine, Jeff. Thank you very much for the introduction.
No problem. What
How
can
are
you
you
tell
doing?
me? I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Enjoying life. Enjoying life. So what can you tell us about the Fragile Heart?
Okay, Fragile Heart is actually my very first published novel. It's about ordinary people living ordinary lives, and it shows the fragility in human nature. It has a main character who is Miranda Wilson, but then it also portrays the lives of four other fictional characters. We have Billy Carlson, who is married to Martha Carlson, and we have Cheryl Smith and Joe Richford. So I just wanted to write a story that portrays, everyday life that people can relate to, and then how fragile we are, because we all are unique and we have a fragile nature. So yeah.
Okay.
And then again, I also wanted to write a book that will be inspiring. So it's taking the audience through a journey. And that's why I must also mention that it's a series. So
Okay.
that's just book one.
Okay. So how many books do you have planned in the series?
I plan to write at most 4 in this
Okay.
particular series. Yeah.
Okay. And this particular one takes place in Nashville, Tennessee.
Yeah, it does.
Lots of country music influence.
Yes, I've heard a lot about Nashville, Tennessee, and I did my research, and yeah, there's music in it, and I have a character who is into music, country music, in the novel. So I wanted it to be set in that particular city.
Nashville's a big it's a great place for music. Last time I was there's a ton of places to go and listen to
Yeah.
just about anything you want to. It's mainly country, but there's also to blues and lots
Yeah.
of different places to go listen to some pretty dang good music. So you live in Nigeria. What's that like?
well, living in Nigeria is interesting, and it kind of makes you to become stronger because you have to fight on a daily basis. Like, what do I mean? Not literally fighting per se, but you need to we call it hustle to make ends meet.
Mm-hmm.
But the country is a fun place because, in spite of everything, we have happy people, talented people, and all kinds of people. So you could mingle with them, and it's fun. I love being in Nigeria. I've lived here all my life, and I'm excited being here, and I'm proud. Although we have our, challenges and shortcomings, but God is helping, and we'll scale through.
So take me through. I mean, I know what it's like to write in my life. So what's a day in Elma's life, and how much writing do you get done, or what's your process look like? Do you write in the morning? Do you write in the afternoon, evening, just whenever you can? Do you have a special place that you go? How does that work? What's your daily routine for writing?
Okay. I mostly write early hours of the morning because it's calm, it's quiet, and I can concentrate.
Mm-hmm.
The major challenge I have here is, here in Nigeria, we don't have access to power 24/7. So sometimes it's dark and sometimes there's power supply. So waking up early, if there's power, I could just turn on my light switch and write. But if there's not, I would have to use my torchlight. And so it's quite challenging per se because I also have a very busy schedule. I'm into a lot of things. So but I try as much as possible to write, let's say, 2, 3 times a week.
Okay, cool. Well, and that's you also run a blog,
Yeah, part-time blog I do.
part-time blog at elmadavidblog.com. So how'd you get into that, and how long have you been doing that?
Okay, that was in the year 2017. I was in school. I think I was in my third year. Yeah, I was in my third year in the university. And, from a very young age, I've had this passion for just writing and getting my thoughts out there in the world. And I had a couple of friends who experimented and went into blogging. I was like, hey, I can do this myself. And, you know, I made my research and I found out that it wasn't so difficult to do. And I started a blog. I used Blogger. Originally, over time, there has been a lot of reforms. I started it as a blog for women, specifically for women. So back then, it used to be all a woman's blog and all. But in the year 2018, a year later, I changed it to Elma David blog because I wanted it to reflect things I'm passionate about. And that's why if you have gone to my blog, you see I write mostly about relationship, business, health, and motivation. I know that's a lot, and I've been told that's actually a very broad niche per se, and I'm still working on trimming it down a bit, but it's just when I feel bored and I just feel like I need to write, I write something and then I post it, and that's how it came about.
So if you're going to trim that down to one single niche, what would be your passion? What would be the one thing that you'd want to write on consistently on your blog?
Relationship.
Relationships?
Yeah.
So what kind of relationship advice do you have?
Well, relationships is actually very broad. And yeah, if I'm going to trim it down, I'm going to be speaking about relationships between the opposite sex, marriage relationships, and then parents, children, family. So it's basically family and then dating, you know, those kind of relationships. And occasionally I write about relationship in the business world, for example, employer, employees, and also it's just relationship on a broad scale.
Hmm. So I assume that you take that passion for relationships and you bring that back into your novels.
Yeah.
That's from the way it looks from your book blurb at least. I haven't read your book. I'm sorry, I just didn't have time, but
All right.
I will pick it up and take a peek at it and read it. So I assume that the family elements and the relationship um type stuff is a little bit different in Nigeria than it would be, say, in the U.S. or something like that? Or do you think that the advice that you have transpires beyond different cultures?
Yeah. I feel that relationship, yeah, we will have definitely some differences and different approaches to it, but generally, I think there are some principles that can be applied on a broader sense, per se. Um, One of the things that inspired me to write my book for a foreign audience or a US audience was the fact that ever since I started my blog in the year 2017, a large percent of my audience have been in the US. So I keep checking my Google Analytics and I keep seeing that I have tons of US viewers, and I just wanted to, write a story that most of them could relate to. And yeah, I was scared at first because I felt, what if I can't do this and would I be able? So I had to do a lot of research, and thank God for Google because, you know, I had to do a lot of Google searches to know what is applicable over there. And besides that, I watch a lot of American movies. I'm a huge fan of, foreign movies, and somehow over time I've learned a thing or two about customs, the culture over there.
Okay. So the next natural question is, what's your favorite movie?
Well, they say variety is the spice of life, and I don't really have a particular pick per se, but to mention a few, let me think. Sorry, just you have
No,
to give me
that's
like a few
yeah,
minutes.
this is fine.
Okay. Um, I'm trying to think of a particular movie that I watched that I really, 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 really like. There are a couple of them per se, but I want one that stands out. Um,
It's Star Wars, isn't it? No, just
no, it's not Star Wars. Well, let me just mention a few because I follow some series like NCIF.
sure.
I also watch House.
Mm-hmm.
Which other one? Okay, let me move a bit from there. And there's this movie, The Hate You Give. I'm trying to remember the title, but then I saw that movie and it was very, very, very inspiring because it featured a Black American. Please pardon me, I don't really keep the names of most of these actors and actresses in
Yeah,
my
no.
memory per se. But I think there's a movie titled The Hate You Give Everybody, something like that. And a couple of other movies. This question was not expected, so please forgive me for the whole.
There's nothing to worry about. I just come up with questions as we're talking.
Okay.
So
So I don't
I
really
was
have any particular favorite.
I was expecting you to say either Die Hard or Sleepless in Seattle.
No.
My my tastes in movies are all over the place. So that would be a hard question for me to ask or answer too. But the thing that I find interesting is that it usually depends what kind of a mood I'm in.
Okay, yeah, true.
But how I'd answer that. But so getting back to your book, when I read the blurb, you have Billy Carlson, a father of four with a serious alcoholism problem that escalates to a new sex scandal and everything else. That sounds very American. It is probably something that happens quite a bit over here. At least I presume it does. But how did you come up with your storyline?
Okay. Well, how did I come up with my storyline? Well,
Yeah.
I got this story, or how do I put it? This Fragile Heart, the whole novel, the idea came last year. And back then, I was in a hurry. I went and started writing a totally different story, but life happened and then I had to stop. And then coming back this year with the whole pandemic, COVID-19, mind you, I wrote during the lockdown. I just started reflecting on life generally and people, the mistakes people make. And sometimes we feel like we make mistakes that are beyond repair. And because I'm passionate about family and, fixing broken homes and all of that, I just got the inspiration to write and feature that particular aspect in my story. So Billy Carlson is actually someone who had, like you said, a serious alcoholism problem. And he was married to a wife who is a Christian who loved him irrespective of the fact that he had such a problem. But because of his nature, he ventured into an affair that cost him not just his job, but his life, his friends. And he was undergoing a downward spiral. and his wife was still with him. And he felt rejected. Of course, he felt really bad. And I see that as something that happens regularly, not just in the US. Yeah, it may not happen the same way here in my country, Nigeria, but then I see men who go through stuff like that and they don't really know how to handle it. So they become hard and they begin to treat other people like they are the problem instead of fixing the main problem. So that character, I had to like portray that in my novel. And just when he was about, coming out of the whole situation he was in, something happened. I don't know. Well, let me just, since I'm talking about it, he lost his wife, or he found out that she had cancer, and it was like it was too late. So he had to, like, all the lost time in a few short months, he had to make up for the lost time. So I see that in the movies. I also see that happening in everyday life. And I also have a couple of friends in the US, and I'm someone who interacts a lot with people. So I think that's to answer your question.
Yeah, and I think that brings up an interesting, there's always some sort of a moral dilemma, or, I mean, there are a lot of people that make mistakes and they tie themselves to them like a rock, and then they sink themselves to the bottom of the ocean with them. They can't let it go, and they can't understand that, okay, this is one mistake. Now I need to move forward without it being a burden on me. I think it's a guilt thing. And I think that's, whether you're, I don't care where you live, somebody does something, whether it's having an affair or one too many drinks, or, running your car off the road, or, spent too much money, or whatever it is. I think people sometimes relate more to their mistakes and the problems that they have versus letting them go and moving forward. And I think that's an important piece when you're, especially when you're reading and you're trying to relate, that that's a good it's a good lesson, I guess, for lack of a better word. But I see a lot of people around that they're all humped over and they're all depressed and everything because they made one big mistake, and they don't understand that no one cares. You probably care about it more than you do. And the people that are acting weird around you because you made the mistake, the only reason that they think, or you think, that they're reacting to the mistake you made is because you're portraying this odd personality trait where you're down, gloom, and doom and gloom and everything else, and not moving forward and being yourself. So they just feel a little awkward around you, especially if you had a really upbeat personality and then all of a sudden you're depressed or something like that. But that's a good moral of the story. What else? What other tidbits do you have for life?
Okay. Another interesting aspect of the story is the life of Cheryl Smith, who was married to an abusive husband, and she had a daughter, and she felt she had to stay in the relationship because she didn't want to hurt people, or she was hurting herself. So she endured physical abuse, domestic violence for a period of 14 years, and she kept, just hanging in there. But she wasn't actually living her life. She wasn't living to her full potential. So I kind of wrote about that and wrote this story in such a way that she came to realize where she was. She realized that she was stuck and she couldn't remain there. And so she opened up and started speaking to her family, because before then she felt she had to deal with it on her own. And that's also something I see happen a lot. So eventually, towards the end of the story, she was able to break free from that marriage. It was not really an easy thing for her because she had held on to it for so long. So I think the moral there is that sometimes as much as we want to put other people before us, especially our family and all, we shouldn't allow people to, treat us badly, all in a bit to please them. We also need to consider ourselves and consider our wants. And for me, I believe that violence of that nature is totally unacceptable. And I wanted to write a story that women can actually relate to, especially women in that who've been through something like that, and people who, women who also aspire to become wives someday and then mothers.
Sure.
Then there's also the aspect of fame that the character Joe Richford, who was born and brought up in a foster home. Okay, he was born and abandoned by his mom, and he's a Black American. So things were kind of difficult for him because he was being brought up in a foster home. He didn't really have access to proper education. And he was very talented. He was a singer, and somehow his talent led him to the top and he made some connections, but he was drifting slowly from his true self, in the sense that, the music industry was pushing him to do things that weren't really true to his personality and didn't really tally with his faith. So I wrote a story of his journey through all of that, and down to his decision where he actually realized and discovered himself and his purpose, and that's it. But the story is interesting because these individual characters at some point had a connection. What I mean is, as the story progressed, at a particular point, Miranda and Joe, they get to meet themselves, and Joe likes Miranda. And then in the sequel, although the sequel features more of that, Cheryl, who went through a divorce, later on, she got married. The sequel per se, if you're reading the book and you get to the ending, the epilogue shows that there's supposed to be a wedding between Billy Carlson and Cheryl about a year and some months after Bill lost his wife because she actually died from the cancer. So that's basically it.
So all of your characters are miserable.
Yeah. At some point, they're miserable.
At some point, they're miserable.
Yeah.
But that's what you have to write about. I mean, you have to write about the life and pain and everything else. But that sounds very interesting. The next thing I want to ask you about, which is totally unrelated to writing, we have to know about your culinary skills. You like to cook.
Yeah.
You like to cook. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your premier dish? What do you like to make?
I'm a noodle fan because I love noodles and I like to play with noodles a lot. So I make pasta, noodles, and I also make a lot of Nigerian dishes as well. For example, if I start mentioning our soups, you probably wouldn't know most of the dishes I'm talking about. But then I cook some, we call it intercontinental dish. And I also bake, but not professionally yet. I bake cakes, I bake cookies, I make meat pies and things like that. I just love cooking. It's a hobby. For example, when I'm bored and I feel like life is getting the best of me, I just go straight to the kitchen and then prepare a lovely dish and then serve it. I find pleasure and fulfillment when people eat my dishes and they love it. It just gives me this joy.
So do you bring that passion for cooking into your writing then?
No.
No big family dinners where they're making the big meal in the kitchen and they're talking about their
Um,
problems or anything like that?
there was a particular part of the story where I didn't even think of it that way. But now that you mentioned it, I remember, yes, at some point there was a family cooking.
Mhm.
That was Cheryl and her daughter when they were having the conversation of Cheryl was trying to break the news to her daughter. Sorry, I have to turn on my fan because I'm sweating a bit. So the background noise is going to, I hope it wouldn't interrupt us a bit.
That's good.
Okay, so yes, there was a particular place in the story where Cheryl was breaking the news of the impending divorce to her daughter, and that particular scene took place in the kitchen where the mother was preparing lunch. So I guess somehow I still brought my cooking into my writing.
What I find weird, especially like in my life, there are a lot of things that happen in the kitchen while you're making food, or conversations or weird things that all of a sudden it's like, oh, this is a really deep conversation while you're cutting up some celery or something like that. It's like, there's a, especially in our household, we like to make meals. We switch on and off. So I cook and my wife cooks, and different things. I make macaroni and cheese pizza and peanut butter and jelly. Just kidding. I go a little more. But and that seems to be where things are a little more relaxed, and all of a sudden somebody asks you a question and you're not really guarded. You just kind of like, bloop, there it is, and you give them the answer, and then it invokes some sort of a conversation. Sometimes good, sometimes
Yeah.
the doomsday of marriage at some point in time, but whatever. um all righty, is there anything else you want to discuss? I mean, we've gone through your books and how you research and your blogging and everything else. And like I said, you're 23 years old, so you've got a lot of time ahead of you. I wish I would have started when I was 23. But
I wish I started when I was 19.
well, I think you started early enough, and so your book is on Amazon in the
Yeah,
U.S.
it is on Amazon.
It's on
Yeah.
Amazon. Okay. Do you have any short stories or anything, or is it just basically your novels in your blog that you write?
Okay, so currently I'm working on a short story.
Okay.
I it's it's something I was planning to publish, but there's this competition I stumbled upon, and it's for short stories. So I'm planning to actually enter that particular short story into the competition. It's a Commonwealth Writers competition for short stories.
Sure.
But then I also intend writing um, featuring some of the other characters in my novel, Fragile Heart, and using it for a short story, especially the characters that weren't really focused on, that we didn't focus on. For example, Miranda Wilson, she has a younger sister, Diana. So I intend writing a couple of short stories about her. That will be like a separate collection.
Sure. So do
Yeah.
you plan on publishing those and selling them, or are you going to put them up on a website and use them as as a lead into your novel, or how do you plan on using those?
Yeah, I actually want to experiment different things. For starters, I would definitely use one or two to collect leads, and then in the process, I could sell some. But it's something that I see myself doing for a lifetime. It because I just love writing, so
Mm-hmm.
it's long term. So I wouldn't mind giving out free copies of my book as I'm starting. And I'm also planning to relaunch my novel. I'm thinking December, January. I haven't really decided yet. And
Okay.
during the relaunch, I'm going to be giving out copies of my book for free, and I'm going to make it exclusive to Kindle. So That's
Okay.
what I plan doing. And also the paperback, I've already started working on setting it up on Amazon. We are actually formatting the cover page and getting ready to relaunch. So at the relaunch, the paperback will also be available on Amazon.
Okay. Cool. Cool. And that's going to happen in December of this year, huh?
Yeah.
So you're going to end the year of all years, 2020, with a win. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yes.
So goodbye quarantine. Hello paperback.
Exactly.
Cool beans. Um, all righty. Well, I think at this point in time, we're probably going to say goodbye. Do you have any last words for the listeners, your
Okay. Last
readers?
words.
Yeah. Anything you want to tell them?
Okay. Well, for my readers, I want you to expect lots of books from me. And I want you to know that this is not just, you know, a quick scheme and then I dump it. No, I'm actually looking at writing for a lifetime, even as I pursue other goals of mine. I intend to entertain you and feel free to reach me. You can always reach me on my author page. It's there, Elma David Author. You can search me on my blog. You could go to it. Once you send a message, hello, hi, I would respond. I don't respond to Facebook messages, but if you can reach out to me on my page, I will take that message seriously. So I would respond.
All righty. So I have one question for you. Over here in the US, we keep on getting emails from a Nigerian prince that's going to give us $10 million. Do you know him?
Absolutely no. I
You,
don't know in
you don't know
Nigeria.
him? Okay, because
I
he owes
don't
me
know
some
him.
money. But anyway, just kidding. All righty. You know what, Elma? It's been a delight. I'm sure that we'll chat some more. We're both in a couple of Facebook groups together and everything, and it's been great getting to know you. It really has. And
Yeah,
I hope that this show does it helps you. I really do. I can't wait to see what Elma looks like in her publishing world in 10 years from now. I bet you it's going to be amazing.
yeah. Thank you very much, Jeff. It's been nice having this conversation with you too.